Now, in late January, a photography student at Arts Uni Bournemouth by the name of Daniel Bowhay set off on a journey from Land's End, his destination, the Scottish border. His mode of transport? Buses.
I, a disabled traveller and bus pass holder, prevented by my disability from driving, attempted to see what freedoms the disabled pass really returned to me. Whilst I was ultimately successful in my journey, it was far from simple. I undertook countless hours of planning to ensure a smooth journey, and ultimately it took me 10 days to reach my final destination.
Now, the resulting project is called Between These Times, which consists of a documentary film and accompanying photo book. But Daniel also has plenty of reflections on the public transport provisions for those with visual impairments in England. And he joins me on the line now. Morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Thanks very much for joining us on Dorset Breakfast this morning, Dan. As a former bus user myself, I have to say I sort of really got interested in this story because I was also heavily reliant on buses at one time. When did you come up with the idea? What started it off for you?
I grew up in Hampshire, living in Bishop's Waltham, and over the last 10 years, I've seen the bus service decline from having 3 routes that service our town down to 1. I'm currently living in Bournemouth for university, but I'm due to graduate shortly and move back home. And because of this reduction in service quality, it's left it as a place that's no longer viable for me to live in independently. I also had concerns over the disabled bus pass and that it was introduced to give disabled people more freedom and mobility, but it's limited, so you can't use it before 9:30 in the morning or after 11 p.m. So using it to get to work, to socialise, attend hospital appointments is all impossible. Well, you can't use it before 9:30 in the morning. And also in general, just the quality of service. We're in a kind of situation at the moment where there's 5 private operators that carry 70% of passengers. 1.49 billion pounds has been paid out to shareholders. And in the last 10 years, over 3,000 routes have been cut or modified.
I have to say, Dan, not being able to use it before 9:30 in the morning, it makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, and I'm sure you're likewise as well. How long did you spend planning this, Dan? Was it really complicated?
Yeah, I mean, I spent probably a good week or so to initially pouring through bus operators' websites, looking at their timetables and working out what a viable route for this would be. And then kind of in the lead up to the trip, I was going back over that because timetables had kind of changed in the 2 months since, and even during the trip timetables were changing, so there's a lot that went into it, working out what a viable route would be.
So you mentioned the timing restrictions on the concessionary bus pass. Is it the same timing restriction for every bus company, or does it change according to which bus company you use?
So it's a pass issue, well, it's a scheme run by the government, so by default, it's 9:30. Certain councils provide top-up funding to give additional benefits. Hampshire County Council used to do this, but about 2 weeks after I got back from my trip, I got a letter through the post to say they were cutting this funding.
Oh, wow. Okay. And well, did these timing restrictions on the concessionary bus pass present you with any difficulties in terms of planning your epic voyage that you're about to set off on?
Yeah, I mean, there was quite a few services I could have used before 9:30 in the morning that I restricted myself along the trip to sticking within the limits of this pass to see what it could do. So there's a lot of services that I couldn't use for that.
And does travelling with a visual impairment slow you down a lot, Dan?
Partially, yes. I mean, a lot of it comes down to kind of being able to see what bus is coming down the road, being able to read the screen on the front of that, and kind of on the buses as well. In Bournemouth at the moment, there's some accessible technologies in terms of having audio announcements and having screens that tell you what the next stop is, although half the time in Bournemouth that doesn't even work. But along the trip, there was 3 buses that had audio, 1 bus that had screens. So in terms of knowing where I am, that's not great.
Not ideal. And are you reliant on buses in your day-to-day life in Bournemouth?
Yeah, I mean, my visual impairment prevents me from driving, so for the rest of my life, I am going to be reliant on this pass and using buses. So, yeah, that was kind of
Well, I wonder if I could get your opinion as well on what you think it says that the concession isn't valid during morning commuting hours. I mean, what kind of a message does that send?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's a good quote from a report from a disabled transport charity that says it denies people their independence of freedom as well as their rights to fully participate in public life, and implies disabled people do not hold a place in the working world, educational settings, or in wider social activities.
Have you ever asked about why that 9:30 restriction particularly is in place? I mean, there must be some kind of reason, however flawed it might be. There must be something that they can say, well, this is why.
I mean, there's been a lot of petitions online on the government's petition website, especially calling, given that Scotland and Wales run their own independent passes that don't have these restrictions. There's been a lot of calls to unify this pass and create a pass that works across the UK instead of just England and doesn't have these restrictions. But the government's responded to these saying that they don't want to fund this and they don't want to unify the pass at all.
Wow. Okay. Tell us about the film then, because this is a bit of an epic. I mean, is it 10 hours long? Is that right?
Yeah, 10 hours. So I kind of took inspiration from this genre of slow TV, and by kind of filming every minute of this journey and replaying this over 10 hours, it just shows how kind of agonizingly slow this journey is, along with showing the delays that I faced, and also the discussions I had with various travellers along the way who were either also reliant on buses, reliant on their passes, and shared similar stories about issues with service quality.
And is this something that, you obviously, you rely on the buses. So is it something that you encounter weekly, daily? I mean, is it always a problem?
Yeah, I mean, I'm travelling to uni every day on the bus, travelling for various appointments to go shopping. So yeah, I'm reliant on the bus every day, experiencing delays, experiencing these technologies that are a great hand in knowing where I am on the bus, experiencing those not working. So yeah.
And how frustrating is that for you, Dan? Because it must. I mean, I'm not the world's most patient man, if I'm completely honest. So things that inconvenience me can rile me quite quickly. How about you? Are you quite calm about it, or are you kind of at the point of I've had enough of this?
I mean, kind of a bit of both. It is something I'm going to have to live with, but also it is just a lot slower traveling by bus, dealing with the delays, dealing with these issues. I mean, obviously the journey I undertook is not something most people would use a bus for, and it's not what it's intended for, but this 10-day journey, you could drive in a car in one day. So it just goes to show on a larger scale just how much slower buses are.
Now, where can people see this, Dan?
So it's going to be showing at a couple of shows over the summer. It's going to be at the Arts University Bournemouth's undergraduate summer shows from the 10th to the 21st of July, and also at the Copeland Gallery in London from the 31st of July to the 3rd of August. And if you search my name, Dan Bowhay, on Google, on social media, you can find out when I'll be releasing this film online at a later date.
Fabulous. And people can also keep up to date with the latest. You're in the BBC News website and app this morning, so famous already by 8 o'clock this morning. Dan, thank you so much for joining us on Dorset Breakfast this morning. I really appreciate you taking the time to sort of give us more details on this 10-hour epic that Dan has produced. Dan Bowhay, they're a photography student from Arts Uni Bournemouth. Dan is exhibiting his project Between These Times, which documents his journey from Land's End to the Scottish border using his concessionary bus pass issued to him due to his blindness. And as you heard Dan saying there, he can't use it before 9:30 in the morning. And I have to say, I just find that completely mind-boggling. And I don't think it's just me that thinks that either. We will, of course, keep you up to date with the latest on this story here on Dorset Breakfast on BBC Radio Solent. We're going to be fine.